All right, so you've created your guy. Now, unfortunately enough, my guy is not finished. I haven't done him, but you guys are ready for this. So we're gonna go to the demo, and we're gonna do the next step, even though he's not really ready for it. What we want to do now is we want to animate. We want to get our guys and start moving the background, moving the person, whatever. And there's a couple tricks to that I think are very important. So let's just say, and I'm going to choose a scenario that would cause you some troubles if you didn't do it correctly, okay? So let's say we've got this guy, and this is a front view, and let's just say he's going to be running towards us, okay? Now, one of the things that you might think to do right off the bat is using your inverse kinematic layer. So let's just go here. I will insert a frame here. So using your inverse kinematic layer, you might try to grab the free transform tool and scale him up and try to do the motions that way. This will work, but not very well. And the reason for that is, as I've found, when you start to scale or move, animate motion through the inverse kinematics layer, the joints don't stay in the same places. They start to float away from their original location. And so what ends up happening is body parts will literally start to, eventually, if it gets bad enough, will start to fly off the body. So you have like the arm will start rotating away from the body and stuff like that. So we don't want to do that. The solution to that is actually really simple. You take your inverse kinematics layer and you place it inside a new symbol. And that new symbol is what you then put your motion tweens and scale tweens on, basically. So to copy this guy into a new symbol is actually really simple. Let's get him set up a little bit here. But I'm going to show you how not to do it, or what's wrong, or what you can do by accident first. The first thing that you can do that's really bad is you have to have everything selected in order to create a new symbol and keep the bones that you've got on this inverse kinematics layer. If, however, you miss one of the invisibles, or you miss a hand, or something like that, so you do this, okay? And you can see that this invisible is missing, right? See, everybody see that? So now I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say convert to symbol down here. And when I say convert to symbol, then this is Billy, and we'll say front, and we'll say scene 1, so that I know that this is the symbol that I'm using in the first shot, which is where he's running towards the camera. Now, it looks fine, and I start animating and all that other good stuff, and then I decide to go in and I double-click on the symbol, and look, the inverse kinematic layer is gone. If I click on it with the black arrow tool, all my bones, oh, it's thinking here, all the bones are gone too. Come on. There we go. So now you can see, as I click on him, all the bones that I had put in there are gone, completely gone. This is obviously really bad because all that setup, all that time that I spent, matching all the joints up and making sure everything worked perfectly, it's gone. And it'd take you days to redo that because the curves that you did for the joints, that's all based upon exactly where the hinges are. And if the hinge pin point is a little bit off, then guess what? Now the curves are off, and if you try to redo it, you'll never get it again. You'll never get it perfect again. So the important thing that you have to do, if I can get back here, enter edit mode, enter change, undo, 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 and of course Flash saves everything you do. And if you go beyond a certain number of undos, I think it's 14 or 17, something like that, you are stuck. Here we go. So now we're back to where it was. Now if I click and make sure I highlight everything, and right click and go to convert to symbol and say Billy front scene 1. It's thinking. You'll notice my symbol, when I double click, I now have my inverse kinematic saved inside that symbol. And I can go back out into scene 1, and there he is. And so now I can add a tween onto this symbol to make him get bigger, to scale up. And so the idea here is that he's running towards the camera. We don't have a camera per se. So as something were to approach the camera, or were to be getting closer to the camera, what's the first thing that you would think that would happen to that object? It gets what? It gets larger. That's the first thing. Now remember, several months ago we went over the 6 ways that artists create the illusion of depth. Okay, perspective was one of them. So we talked about perspective. We did a unit on that. So one of the other ways was size. As things are bigger, they appear closer in a flat surface. What's another thing that we do that is already inherent in what I've got right there? When things are further away, what's their position like on the page? Vertically, if something is closer to you, is it towards the top or the bottom? Bottom, exactly. This is actually a function of perspective, right? Because our horizon line would be up top, and then things that are closer come towards the bottom. So if I want him to look like he's coming towards me, what we're going to do is we're going to start him up at the top smaller, and then as he gets bigger, not only will he just increase in size and scale, but he's also going to move down the page in quotes, okay? This is going to give the illusion of depth, the illusion of him coming closer to us. We don't have any other way to create that because in Flash, now this isn't completely true, but in Flash, when you're doing traditional 2D animation like this, you don't have a camera, so to speak. So you have to kind of, you have to make it up. You have to make that illusion happen using those tricks. So I'm going to increase this. Let's go to about 160 frames or so. Let's just insert a frame there. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to create my motion tween. Now let's go back to the beginning and I'll set my beginning point. So he's going to start here. Okay. And then at 160 frames, I want him down here. And this is the nice thing about this is it creates the path for me. And I'm going to scale him up. Make sure you hold the shift key down so you don't do that. Okay. And I may even have to back up a little bit, Command minus, and enlarge him even more and move him down even more. So now what we get is we have this sense of him coming towards us, right? Doesn't that look like he's coming towards us? He's not. Okay, this is 2 dimensions. He's not coming towards us. All I've done, and this is an important concept for you to understand, all I've done is I've moved him down on the page, again, page in quotes, I moved him down on the page and I've enlarged him. That's it. But by doing those 2 things, I've created the illusion that he's coming closer to the camera. And again, in quotes, camera. There is no camera here. He's coming closer to us, the viewers. So now what I need to do is I need to fill in the details. This is called blocking out the action. The nice part about this is I've now created this motion. Now if I play it, he kind of looks like a ghost or something like that because he's just sliding, right? Whoa! Okay, and I do have a motion, and you'll see that motion. What's that? What's happening to that motion that I created with his foot? What is it doing? It's repeating. In animation or Flash, we call it looping. Why is it looping? Tanner. Is it longer or shorter? It's shorter. So the animation that's inside the symbol, the inverse kinematic animation, is only what, I think 30 frames long, right? So here's what happens is Flash, hang on a second, hold that thought. Flash, if the inside animation inside the symbol is not the same length as the outside animation in the scene, we'll just continue to play that animation inside the symbol over and over and over and over and over again. Now, you can actually tell it to stop by using code. Flash will allow you to code a stop in there. It's really easy. But for the most part, we're not going to do that, okay, unless you really want to, and I can teach you how to do that. It takes 30 seconds. It's really easy. But for now, we're just going to ignore that. But that's an important concept. So we've got a couple of really important concepts that I've showed you already. Number one, you are creating the illusion of depth. You're not creating actual depth. You are creating the illusion of depth and motion. By scaling him up and moving him down on the page, you've created this look like he's coming towards us. Now we add a background in, we add some trees that are then getting smaller. It'll make it look like the camera is moving too, won't it? If things are moving in the background, if background elements are moving, then the camera is now moving. You can create all sorts of illusions like we did in the previous demo where I had the trees whizzing past. Was there a real camera that was moving? No. I was creating that illusion by adding motion to a background, things that you know are normally stationary. If they move, if a tree moves from left to right, you know that a tree doesn't walk. So your automatic assumption is now the camera's moving, you see? So you use those things to help create the motion. The second concept here that's really important is that of looping. If the animations inside the symbols are not the same length as the animation in the scene, then what you have is you have a place and a time where Flash is going to loop the animations. It's going to take that shorter one and just keep playing it over and over and over and over. Consequently, if your animation in the scene is shorter than the animation inside the symbol, then the animation inside the symbol will not get a chance to finish before the scene starts to loop. So you see how the scene is also looping, right? If this scene was only 15 frames long, and the animation that's in the inverse kinematic layer is 30, we'll never finish that because the scene animation is going to loop and going to cut. Do you see? So it's important to understand that if you want things to happen simultaneously, you have to synchronize them. However, you can take advantage of this looping principle with things like running. So let's go back to the animation we looked at last week. This guy. Now it looks like he's just running. He's sliding. That's what it looks like. Okay, it's like slipping on the ice. The animation here is 60 frames long. If I double click on the symbol, you can see he's running. The run cycle is 30 frames long. What I've done though with that run cycle is the first and the last frame are identical. So when you put those together, in 60 frames that it takes from him to go from the right side to the left side, he does that animation inside the symbol, which is 30 frames long. He does that twice. Does that make sense? Now, I could have gone in here and animated him running for a full 60 frames so that they matched up. But why do the work when I know the Flash is just going to loop it anyway? So I can be lazy and smart, in my opinion, and just do a shorter animation, and as long as it loops, as long as the first frame and the last frame are the same, as long as it loops, and guess what? I don't have to do all that extra work. I can allow it to loop over and over and over again. And then here's the other brilliant thing. If all of a sudden I decide I want this animation to run for 90 seconds or 120 seconds, all I have to do is just grab this, grab them all, stretch them out. Whoops, I just created copies. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, well, we'll just do that. I can just stretch these out like this. And by increasing the time that I have my major tweens going in the sequence, it's going to look like he's running slower now because he's covering the same distance but in over twice the time. But the run cycle actually looks pretty good. The run cycle is still the same. But this time, instead of only 2 sequences in 60 frames, he's doing 4 sequences in about 120. And it just keeps looping. The nice thing about using that looping is that I can adjust the timing in my animation to make this sequence longer, and I don't have to redo the animation of the run cycle that's inside the symbol. And so this concept of animations running inside other animations is really key to the way Flash works, and it saves you a ton of time. However, it also increases the complexity of your animations, because you have to remember what's running where. And on top of that, Flash won't show you animations that are running inside symbols. So if I just go here to the timeline, and I just scrub the timeline, he just looks like he's sliding. I have to remember that I put an animation on that symbol, which isn't a big deal. So let's go back to this guy. So right now, he's getting bigger and he's coming towards us. Now right now, if we just take a look at this, doesn't look very good. It's why? Does it feel natural or unnatural? Feels unnatural to me. Why does it feel unnatural? Can anybody kind of come up with an idea? Yeah, Jordan. All right, we're going to deal with that. Yeah, he starts out fast and he slows down. The velocity changes. That's actually a whole nother demo. We'll deal with that in a little bit. That's called ease in, ease out, or ramping, whatever. We're going to talk about that. What else is wrong with this? Tanner? He's just sliding. When somebody's running or walking, what does their body also do besides come closer? Well, okay, so their limbs move. They go up and down, exactly. So they bounce up and down a little bit. So before we go into the symbol and start animating his limbs, we're going to go and we're going to animate this up and down motion. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm just going to go up a little bit, and every 5 frames, I'm just going to move him up and down. And the beauty of the motion tween is that it creates the keyframes for you. So I don't have to do very much work in this. But another important concept that I've just shown you is that it's easier to do this if you go from the beginning. You start the beginning. This is where I want him to start. Then you finish the ending first. So you go all the way to the end, you say, this is where I want him to end. Then you go back into the middle and you start filling in the details. Okay? So that he's not sliding. But that's also another important concept. Because that really helps me. Now I just can fill in these little details, and the overall motion has already been taken care of. And so I'm just changing the position of the body in slight relative terms. If I tried to do this by scratch from the beginning and end up where I wanted to end up, it'd be very difficult. Because how do I know I'm moving him and scaling him up piece by piece the right amount? No. So that is a really important concept. Did I go up or down on that last one? Crap. Up. Okay, down. It's really important for you to do your ending position and your beginning positions first. Get it set up. Make sure that the timing makes sense so that it takes the amount of time that you want, and then you fill in the little details. I think I've done a couple double, like 2 downs and then 2 ups. Was that an up or a down I did the last one? Stink. I don't remember. That's what happens when I talk and animate at the same time. There. Okay. So now let's do this and see what it looks like. Okay? Now, actually that doesn't look too bad. Except for now the speed issue is really bothersome, isn't it? How he starts out fast and he slows down. That's a real problem. But you know what? We'll take care of that later. Again, we worry about details later. We go from big to small problems. So now we need to start animating what's inside the symbol, and I'm not going to do a ton of that. But first I want you to take a look. There's a book here that I've got that I'm going to leave out on the center table. And it is called The Animator's Survival Kit. Watch your eyes. I'm going to turn the lights on real quick. This book is done by Richard Williams, the director of animation for the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So many of you saw that when you were kids. It's a great movie. And the Animate, that was groundbreaking, by the way, because it was one of the first movies, not the first, but one of the first movies that ever incorporated live action actors and animated characters together. It was the best one, the first one that did it really well, though, in my opinion. Yeah, Mary Poppins was probably, that might have been the first, I don't know, but it was, you know, but that whole movie was like that too, whereas Mary Poppins, the whole movie wasn't like that, whereas, you know, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was the whole movie. But anyway, what he has in here is he has all these great things. These are keyframes for you. So he's literally done all these drawings and figures for you. They're all keyframes. So if you want somebody to walk or to run, just browse through the book. You'll find, oh look, there's a run. That's a run cycle. So that running guy that I just showed you beforehand, all I did was copied the keyframes from here. Done. And I moved it the way he's got them in the book. The author's name is Richard Williams. He's awesome. The book is awesome, and it's got all these sort of fun things like, you know, like an aggressive run or a silly run or a cartoony run, you know, or one of those, you know, where their legs take off first and their head stays behind for a split second and they take off. I mean, like, he shows you how to do all of that stuff in this book, and it's all based on keyframes. So here I've got this guy from the front. Now I've got two-dimensional animation here, and the negative about this puppet system that we've got is I can't really change the legs and arms as if they were going towards you. So I kind of have to fudge it a little bit. I have to make it a little bit different. But let's just try. We'll do a couple real quickly. So I'm going to go back here, start at the beginning. And it doesn't really matter where you are here. When you double click on this symbol, it goes back to 1 when you're inside the symbol. But notice it keeps the position that you were at when you double clicked. So that could be helpful, by the way. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to remove that pose. I'm going to clear the pose. There we go. So now we're just starting back to 0. Let's start at 1 here. And I could look at this book if I wanted to set up a position. But we're just going to start with this, pretend like he's walking a little bit. And again, like I said, this isn't perfect. Not even close. Because he's two-dimensional to a point where I can't really change his limbs as much as I might like, okay? But I'm just going to do a quick walk cycle, so just going to step forward a couple. Bring his arm out a little bit more. Oh, and Flash is thinking, I hate it when Flash does this. I have another demo that I'm going to do, by the way, to stop this from happening. If Flash starts to do this where it's thinking like this for more than a minute, I have a demo to do so that you guys can kind of get away from that a little bit. By the way, sometimes when you start getting limbs in front of each other, it gets really hard to click on them. That's where your empties are going to be really handy, because I guarantee that they're always going to be somewhere where you'll be able to click on something. If you can't click on a limb so if I can't click on the upper leg because the upper arm is blocking it, I can go down and either click on the calf, or I can get down to the empty if I have to and click on it and start moving things. That's very handy and very helpful. And so now I'm going to start returning him back to normal. Let's just see if I did this okay. This is my first one look like, yep. So So it's probably about time to copy and paste. So I'm just going to sit here. To make a true cycle where it loops seamlessly, I'm going to take my first one, and I'm going to copy that pose. I'm going to go to the end. And I don't think this is going to be a very good cycle, because I really didn't take a lot of time doing it. I'm going to paste it. And then all these extra frames, if I don't change them, they're going to be a pause. Let me say that again. If I don't get rid of them, it's going to pause. Yeah, that's not so high. That's not so. He looks like he's dancing, but that's okay. So let's just go back to the scene. I'm going to leave the pause in there so you can see what it does. Ready? We're going to build it, and then this is it. We'll be done with it. See how he stops? It's like, yeah. Okay. So in order to get rid of that pause, I go back in here. I click and hold and drag. Whoops. Stupid flash. Click, hold, and drag like that. Highlight those frames, and then I remove them. So now the cycle ends right at 22, right there. I think that's 22. It tells me right here. Yeah, I'm at 22. So right here, it tells you what frame you're on and what your frames per second is and how many seconds has elapsed. So right now, this is 0.7 seconds. So he does a whole walk cycle in 0.7 seconds. That's really fast. Anyway, scene one. Now let's build the animation again and see how the two come together. Not bad. Not bad. All things considered. Looks like, he definitely looks like a marionette, right? On strings or something like that. Here's the last and very important concept, okay? Flash will only show you all levels of your animation when you do the build, when you preview it, and that is hit Command and Return at the same time. It will not show you in the scene timeline. So right here, this is the build, this is the preview window. But right here, in the scene window, it's not showing me the walk cycle that I've built, or the run cycle that I've built in there. It's only showing me the one animation here. Then I double click, and now it doesn't show me the walk cycle, it only shows me this animation. In order to get it to show you everything, to put it all together, you have to build it, which is under the Control, Test Movie, Command Return. Okay? Or go to that menu. That will then show you all your pieces. This is just the beginning. But what this is this is really the process of starting to put it all together. I've given you all the little pieces. Animation is very complex in a lot of ways. But now what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking all those little pieces, the inverse kinematics, the idea of symbols, the idea of symbols inside symbols. Do you see what this is? This is a nested tween. What you're doing right here, making this guy walk and bounce and all that sort of stuff, this goes back to that very first assignment that I did for you, or made you guys do, where you had to do the nested tween. A lot of you guys messed that up, or didn't even try to do it, or got confounded by it. Okay, well now we're going to see it in real practice, so hopefully you can make it happen here. Okay, and obviously I'm going to help you. But does this make sense as to what we're doing here and how we're starting to put all this together? This is the start. This is the start of our animation. Okay, and you're just going to start that first scene and get it done. Obviously I have no background, I have nothing else in here. This is very simple. I wish the demo was a little more complex, but it's not. But it's probably better that it's not too complex so that you get it a little better. Are there any questions? Because Jordan, you had a question. Did I answer it, or is it gone? Okay, yeah, and we're going to deal with that. I'll just tell you that you can deal with that in the motion editor. See if you guys can figure that out on your own. Okay? All right, that's it. Let's get to work.